Charter Local Edition. I'm Brad Pomerance in the Inland Empire. Today we're joined by Nathan Miller. He is the vice president of the Riverside Community College District. Been in the news a lot lately. You were on the Press Enterprise cover a few months back because it appeared that someone had committed voter fraud and re-registered you as a Democrat when we know you well as a Republican.
It didn't appear, they did.
Right, and that I believe is still under investigation.
Yeah, my assumption is that that's just going to go to a dead end because the Secretary of State's already declared that they don't have the ability to research that.
Right.
They claim that they don't capture IP addresses.
Right.
From what I know of filling out forms online and the government that monitors every keystroke of their employees, I question that,
right.
and I'll just leave it at that.
But then, a few months after that, you appeared again.
What?
In the Press Enterprise, and this was a little different. Apparently, and this is what you have said, there was a tweet that was issued on the Riverside County Republican Party's Twitter account,
right.
And it was a cartoon, and the cartoon said, "Ready for Hillary," and there was an executioner.
Right.
And the fallout was interesting. The fallout at first was X and became Y.
Well, I mean, if you want to follow the story, the
Yeah.
original context of it was somebody had tagged the Twitter account for the County Republican Party asking if they had signs for Republicans for Hillary, which was, you can argue whether or not they were serious or being sarcastic or insulting. And so the response was, don't have any of those, but these are pretty popular, and it was that picture.
Right.
The original angle, I think, of the press and going after that story was, the party did this.
Right.
The chair, has autonomy over the account,
Right.
What's going on. And then, I told the chairman right away, obviously, because I had access to the Twitter account.
Right.
I was, I'm asked and tasked, I was tasked, at least at the time, to putting out party-related messages that I did it. So when my name came out, it's just a different angle to the story.
Yes, it was. What I thought was compelling about the chain of events is at first, the official position of the party was this was tongue-in-cheek, this was satire, but by the end of the day, it seemed as if they had changed their position to this was unacceptable. And before you know it, I'll just use a cliche, you were just kind of put out to pasture, you lost your state job. It became somewhat of a regional story. I heard it on local NPR stations, and so, it was interesting. From my perspective, having known you, it was hard to watch, to see this unravel before my very eyes. I know you, whether I agree with you or not, or agree with the tweet or not, still, you're someone that I interact with frequently, so it was...
Well, I mean, with regard to the original statement that came out from the party chairman, I mean, and the context of the tweet was an exchange between two entities. It wasn't a statement to anybody else. It was an exchange between two entities. And the reality, though, in this 21st century social media world that we live in, and especially given the nature of the harsh, partisan, volatile rhetoric that everyone's using against one another, context is irrelevant. You just need to know that. And
so that's what you learn.
Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of public opinion by your opponents. Obviously my opponents feel that they can take this and they're trying to twist it into a story saying that my putting that out there was akin to a calling for harm to happen to a candidate, which
which I thought
I don't think that's resonating, but I understand why they're saying
what
that.
What I found interesting is right around that same time, Donald Trump, who is the Republican nominee, made a statement about the Second Amendment folks taking care of Hillary Clinton. And some folks felt as if that was a call toward violence. Other folks saw it as a call towards...
Context is irrelevant in this new world political order that we live in. Look, what about everybody at anti-Trump rallies where they're hanging him and burning him in effigy? Are they saying that they want to see him assassinated.
Right.
I hope not.
Right.
There's a lot of nastiness in politics. For me, with the fallout from the tweet that I did on behalf of the party, my concern is to anybody that was impacted by it just through no fault of their own. It was a choice that I made, and in the response that I sent out, obviously the parties had to take some heat for it, and some other folks that are close to me, and they have no, I don't think people have any business giving them a hard time, but
How are you doing?
I'm fine, doing good. I dealt with it. The first week was, you don't know how to prepare to deal with a situation like that until you actually deal with it. So it's just a matter of processing all that information and then moving on. I've made my peace with the community college district, and my apologies to the students and everybody there that it's impacted, just having to deal with that. But the story ran for a few days. Then the Olympics came on, and Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton overshadow everybody in this election cycle. And then I think they followed my first meeting. There hasn't been much afterwards. I expect it'll come up throughout the course of covering my re-election campaign.
But what do you make, though, of this heated rhetoric? Burning Donald Trump in effigy, lock her up.
I think 200 years ago was 10 times worse.
One could argue,
They would tar and feather people. I mean, politics has always been like that. The difference is back then, they'd write it in papers and it would take weeks to show up in your town sometimes. But now it's front and center.
But I think it's fair to say.
And with trolls on the internet, I mean, that's really the worst part, right?
There are some people. Those people probably have, mental challenges that hear call to arms, be it from ISIS, be it from whoever, and act. And
how do you control that, though? I mean, they can take, you're talking about folks, if they have mental challenges, they can take anything, a music album, something they hear, a label in the grocery store. I mean, they have mental problems, so they can take whatever. I mean, you never know what's going to set those people off. And other than just really overtly asking people to do things, you just really, we got to live our lives.
So what have you learned from this?
That context is relevant in this 21st century. I mean, that goes without saying. The other thing I'd say, and this is a larger scale thing, I think with political parties in general, if you look at the Democratic Party, I admire them because, they have their members and their rank and file people that take their fight to the Republicans and do things like this all the time. Much more egregious. I think we have a gubernatorial candidate that's going to be running for governor who cheated on his wife and slept with his chief of staff, I'm assuming ex-best friend's wife, while he was in office, and now he's a viable candidate for governor. And how is that acceptable? But they close ranks, they support each other, and they tell their rank and file people, you go out and fight the good fight for us and we'll protect you. And I think that the message that comes from the Republican Party, and this is just, set my issue aside, whenever anybody in the Republican Party gets any kind of heat for anything, barring illegal bad stuff, that deserves rebuke, but they never support their people. And if you're going to ask them to risk, and then the message to them is, we're not going to be there for you if you take any heat, it's no wonder to me that you see the Republicans continuing to disperse and they're unwilling to stand up for their party because their party isn't willing to stand up for them.
His name is Nathan Miller. He is the vice president of the Riverside Community College District. He is running for re-election. That election will be held in November. My name is Pomerance. We're coming to you from the Inland Empire on Charter Local Edition.